Anyways, guys, as you all know, something that we're doing now is me and Chip want to teach each other something every single week.
Oh yeah.
So last week we had the telepathy tapes. Let me know, did any of you guys actually go and listen to that podcast? If you did, let me know your thoughts, because I'm really curious to get other people's things. There's definitely controversy around it. Have you had a chance to listen to the...
I haven't yet, no.
Should definitely give it a go or watch some sort of video that summarizes it, because... yeah, man. I'm seeing a lot of things that are agreeing, and then some people putting up some valid things as to why it's not legit. I'm curious. Anyways, what are you gonna educate me on, broski?
I think you might already know about this. I wasn't sure. I asked Stanley and Elliot if they knew about it. They both said no, so I was like, oh fuck it, I'll send it because I find it interesting. But do you know about the Stanford prison experiment?
I've heard of it, and I have definitely watched stuff on it before, but as of right now, my mind's completely blank.
Okay, cool. I've had to write so many fucking notes in this thing because it's quite long.
Yeah. So this is experiment. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's an experiment done by like a psychology professor. Like, he's got a PhD and everything. He was a professor at Stanford University. And it's 1971, so it's fucking yonks ago. In fact, the professor now is dead. Like, died in like 2014. It's called Dr. Philip Zimbardo. And there's actually a movie on it if you want to watch the movie. There is a decent movie on it with there's decent cast members in it. Anyway, they did this experiment. Essentially, the idea of the experiment was to test power dynamics between prisoners and guards. Obviously, you know, just in real life, prisoners get treated like shit. Guards can have a power trip. The idea behind that, and like his idea of what he believed. Oh, sorry, here, I've got it here. If guards became brutal and due to their new acquired power, or if it's kind of brutality that exists in human nature anyway. So in this experiment,
were they using like already existing security guards, or were these just people that were told, okay, you're a security guard?
It gets super interesting. So it was like 24 participants, and they found the participants by putting out an ad in a newspaper saying, looking for college students in this age, blah, blah, blah. They were quite young. They were all about 20, by the way. Just all of the participants around the age of 20, under or above, and they were all white males. Okay. So yeah, they're looking for participants in like this prison study kind of thing. Didn't really give them too much info on it. So everyone comes in to do screenings for everyone. They don't tell them if they're going to be a prisoner or a guard. I think they tell them that they can be one. Which would they prefer? Everybody said they wanted to be a prisoner, which is I found quite interesting, because people generally don't like guards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like a bad...
Oh, I probably would have picked a guard.
Yeah, but I think you would have picked a guard now knowing what happens. Right. But not based on like... I don't know. Okay. Anyway, back then in the 70s, everyone picked prisoner. Maybe it was just that group and it was just whatever. So they decided who was going to be a prisoner or a guard by actually flipping a coin. So they didn't take any of the... like the stuff about them as personalities or traits or anything like that and go, oh, he's a better guard, he's a better prisoner. They just flipped a coin between people and that decided it. So I want to say there was 12 prisoners, 12 guards. 9 of them were guaranteed from each side and 3 substitutes for each role. Okay, does it make sense?
Yeah, what were the subs for in case people had to
just
like leave?
In case people pulled out, in case like they needed to like rearrange it, the experiment needed to continue. Also, they were getting paid $15 a day. So, by the way, today's money, I think it's either $150 or $115.
So pretty good going
per day. And the experiment was said to be running between 7 to 14 days. Like, fuck, man, you're making, good little cash here.
At that age,
but just something
college students?
I think most of the participants saw it as something easy, something chill. They can lie around all day. They're not going to be doing much, whatever. Philip Zimbardo, the guy that was heading up the experiment, actually took on the role of prison superintendent, which is quite interesting. It comes into play later on. So yeah, he was a kind of like mediator between the guards and the prisoners if anyone was going wrong. And obviously he was running the experiment, but putting himself in that role kind of messes up the actual experiment himself, because he's got bias. And instead of detaching himself from it and just being a researcher from the outside with the perspective doing his research, as you probably should have, he became involved in it and like telling people what to do. And there's a lot that goes on around that I can tell you about in a bit. So what they actually did, the prison was I think it was the basement of the university, and it was roughly about 5 rooms. It was a corridor, which was the prison yard, like
just a corridor.
Just a corridor. By the way, there is no windows, nothing down here. So there's a corridor, and there's 3 rooms attached to the corridor. These are the cells. Now in the movie, they've actually got doors with prison bars on them. And I don't know if that was actually in real life, but in the movie that they've got that. But the movie is quite accurate for the most part. There are little bits done for drama, but there's also a really good pod on it from I Could Murder a Pod if you wanted to get the actual facts. But anyway, there's 3 rooms off the corridor. Those are the cells, 3 prisoners per cell. There's also like a guards room where the guards can relax, chill out. The guards have got it pretty easy, to be fair. They are doing shifts, so it's like 8-hour shift, and the other team can go on. They can go home if they want to. They can go home.
The guards can just go home.
Guards can go home. The prisoners are here 24 hours a day, non-stop. They don't leave. They are actually prisoners.
Yeah.
So the prisoners come in, they strip them down completely naked, delouse them, so like fucking spray and stuff to get rid of lice. Like a general, sorry, I've missed a key bit here, but they generally treat them like prisoners. But here another bit, this was mental, right? So the prisoners actually got arrested in daytime by real police officers out on the streets, like in front of their family and stuff. Like you arrest for armed robbery, this or that.
Yeah.
Now, the professor in like a meeting with the guards told the guards that the prisoners were aware of this and they knew it was going to happen. So like ethically, it's fine. Like, they were aware. But the prisoners have said they didn't know they were going to be arrested like that, and they've been arrested in front of family members and stuff, and which is obviously fucking mental.
Yeah, that is mental. Well, the family would have been...
Not agreed to that. So it's up in the air right now. One person says one thing, another person says another. So yeah, prisoners get arrested. They come in, they get shoved in these rooms, and they're made to wear dresses, like with no underwear, like dresses with these like caps, like these women's cap things. Essentially dress them as women to like, demasculate them. Is it demasculate? Yeah, demasculate them, make them feel vulnerable and uncomfortable. That was the idea. They were trying to create this divide between the guards and the prisoners, the power dynamic. And even the guards, right? They were given full guard outfits. They had bats. I don't want to say it was like a real bat, but it was like, not like a baseball bat, but like the prison kind of bat thing. They were told not to hurt them. They could do anything they wanted to keep order in the prison, anything, but they couldn't like touch them and physically harm them. And I think for the most part, they didn't physically harm them, like actually beat the shit out of them. That didn't happen. But yeah, that was what they were told. And they were given mirrored glasses, so they could never make eye contact between them and the prisoners. And this was like to help.
Who was given the mirrored glasses?
Sorry, the guards were given the mirrored glasses, like a classic guard look.
Yeah.
But I think the whole idea was to help them be able to treat the prisoners like objects. Like the prisoners, they didn't call them by their names. They had numbers. So they would call them like 8126. I think that might be the name of one of the famous prisoners. But anyway, they get in there instantly. The guards are, feel it. Some of the guards are really feeling the power. Like one of them, it's crazy. One of them, who they called John Wayne, after the cowboy.
Yeah.
And he hated
inspired by Arthur Hill.
He was, I think there's this movie called Cool Hand Luke, which I haven't seen myself, but when I was researching this, they said that he reminded them of one of the guards or something in that movie. So he was like, fuck it, I'm going to base my guard persona in this prison around this Cool Hand Luke, which is already bad for the experiment in the first place because it's not natural. The idea was to do a natural experiment. He's pretending to be someone else, like he's not even playing himself. How can the power dynamic be truly tested if he's actually
not
playing an
himself.
actor? Yeah. So there's loads of variables that are already fucking up the experiment in the first place, which is why I don't think it's, people lean on it too seriously these days. But yeah, so he dons like this Southern accent, like proper full-on Southern accent, and he's a knob. Like he's a dick. He treats them like so badly.
So when you're saying like they're not allowed to like physically do anything to them, what sort of like mental things were they doing? When you say he was being a dick to them, like what? Like, what was he doing?
I mean, he'd be screaming at them. He'd be shouting at them. He lines them all up, right? I think this is one of the earlier days. Line them all up and like make proper degrading behavior. Like make them all like say their name out loud, but it's their number. So I'd be like, all right, my name's 942. Already you're just, detaching from your real person and, becoming this prisoner. And he'd make them do it. They were doing it too slow. He'd be shouting at them. Proper prison guard stuff, making them sing it. Like just real like torturous kind of stuff, but not physical. Yeah. But he is being an arsehole as much as he can. If he was told he could hit them, this guy probably would have done that.
Yeah.
When they were sleeping, obviously they were already... the prisoners were like, this experiment, like, I'm not fucking doing half the shit, like, you're taking it too seriously. And they were like, no, fuck that. You're going in a hole. Sorry, I forgot to mention the hole. The hole is solitary confinement. Yeah. So it was their way of keeping the prisoners in line. It was a broom cupboard, pitch black broom cupboard that they were locked into.
Pitch black?
Pitch black. For as long as they wanted to lock them in there. Pitch black. They were fucking with the prisoners' sleep. So the prisoners would go to sleep, get sleep. They'd wake them up at like 3 a.m, smashing on the doors with the batons. Next guard's coming in on shift, and just start doing head counts and just make them all line up again and just, start reading off their fucking names and numbers again. It's fucking insane. But anyway, there's this prisoner. I've got his exact one because you'll want to research it. His name was 8162. Yeah, he's the guy. He essentially leaves the experiment early. Because he's just like having a terrible time. He starts screaming he gets locked up in solitary confinement, whatever it is. He gets locked up in there and he starts screaming like, I'm burning up. There's real clips of it and everything. Screaming, having a mental breakdown. And initially, the Zimbardo guy, the guy running it, was like, no, keep him in. This is part of the prison experiment. This is all part of it. And obviously weren't happy about this. And he carried on with his mental breakdown, making it seem genuinely real. Gets taken out because he is actually distraught. But afterwards, after the experiment's done, he said he faked it so that he could actually just get out early. So this is another thing that's already fucked up the experiment as well, because people are faking to leave. There was another rumor as well that allegedly he thought he was coming in as a college student. He'd be able to revise for exams he had coming up. So he thought, 2-week lock-in, exam revision. And he's like, realized that's not possible because they take all your belongings off them. You have fuck all. Which is fair because it's prison simulation. And he's like, oh, well, now I'm fucked because I've got exams in 2 weeks and I can't revise. So, yeah, there was an idea behind he might have faked it for that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's one thing. Sorry, I've got more here as well. So, this one was mental. So there is another prisoner. This prisoner's called prisoner 819. This guy, I think, for real, was having a mental breakdown because this is like day 4 or 5 of the experiment. And by the way, the experiment lasts for about 6 days. Until it does eventually get shut down. But this prisoner 819, he's having a real bad time, real mental breakdown. They actually said that he could leave because he was suffering that badly. They were like, wait, this guy, he started to believe that he was really a prisoner. Started to internalize that he is a prisoner and he was doing a bad thing. And outside, the guards, because obviously it's all confined, so he's in one room talking to the superintendent, but the hallway is just outside.
Yeah.
And the guards make the other prisoners start chanting, prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. And so I think he decides to stay in the prison to prove to the other prisoners wrong that he's like, to prove them he's not a bad prisoner.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it is fucking insane. You really should actually watch this because it's really interesting. And to this day, I think it is still taught in universities and colleges in psychology classes.
Yeah. So what was his purpose of doing this entire experiment?
Yep.
Was to show what happens when you have a power dynamic.
I think he had beliefs, right? And I think his belief was like, humans can be inherently evil, like if given with power dynamics in prisons, it like his beliefs, it messed up the experiment. Obviously, there's so many ethical violations going on, which was the main fucking thing. That's the main study of it these days, like how an experiment can go so wrong. He was not protecting the participants that were in his experiment. He had got so involved that he started even internalizing that he was a prison superintendent. People were getting hurt. People were having mental breakdowns, psychologically being, tortured essentially. And his priority should have been their welfare, their well-being, and like, oh my God, I need to get these people out. Yeah. But instead he was like, no, the prison experiment needs to continue. And he'd started acting like the superintendent. But anyway, a lot of people believe that he had ideas and results already, like what he thought what the results would be.
Yeah.
And the experiment was almost forced and guided to play out like that so it could back up his thoughts and his idea of what would happen.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people believe that it's just flawed from the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of mistakes.
Guards allegedly were encouraged. There was more things actually. Sorry, there was a lot to the story. Sorry, I'm forgetting a couple bits, but Some of the prisoners locked themselves in one of the cells. Guards obviously fucking fuming about it. Couldn't get through. So then this is allegedly, they got a fire extinguisher and just sprayed it through the bars in the room. So they were just all, obviously when you get fire extinguishers, you're fucked. It's really bad for your lungs, and they're all coughing everywhere, and then just barge in. They ripped all of the beds out, took all the beds, everything out, so they had to sleep on the floor, the prisoners, and there was only one room where if you were a good prisoner, you could sleep in there on a bed. And like the good prisoners, the ones that were like being like, all right, guys, yeah, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to revolt. They were getting fed like nice meals, like really nice meals. And then they were like, look what happens to the good prisoners, guys. They would get treated well. And like in the end, they were just like succumbing to it, being really respectful to the guards just so they wouldn't get treated like shit.
So it was like out of fear.
Out of fear. It was mental. But the whole point about it was like the prisoners really did start to feel like prisoners, and the guards were getting more sadistic by the day. So in the end, getting towards day 6, it's becoming fucking terrible. Like the guards are making the prisoners shit in buckets and not making them clean it. Like there was just shit in buckets in the hallway.
Oh man,
it had become fucking
feral,
terrible. Like pure power trips, really sadistic stuff. And I think because they were doing this right, and obviously it's all being filmed, there are mics, there are cameras, and they're making the prisoners shit in buckets, and no one's coming in being like, hey, like, all right, you know, this is morally wrong. You can't do this. They were like, oh, this is what they want. Like, they want us to keep doing this. This is exactly what the superintendent wants us to do. This is part of the experiment. Like, let's keep going. Like, yeah, we're meant to push the boundaries here. But even, I think another point of it was like, people have their own morals, and, you know, it's wrong to do this stuff. But when do your personal morals come in and go, wait, I shouldn't be doing this now. I know I'm part of this experiment. I've been told to kind of rough them up a bit or whatever.
Yeah.
When do I stop? And they just kind of fucking didn't.
Mate, on a weird, like, point on that, do you think things like Beast Games, Inside, other game shows where they're like living in is just a less extreme version of that, in the sense that it's obviously not a prisoner and a guard setup, but it's a production versus contestant.
Yeah.
Like, it'll never get to that point because people's morals, and they'll go like that. But I wonder if
I guess it's like
that power that you have over the contestants.
Taking like people that have no money and being like, hey, there's loads of money there that I have, and you can have it if you do all this.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess if you break it down like that, it does sound a little bit inhumane. But I guess for those guys,
not like that. Like, but that's what I mean. Like, there's a line.
There is a line,
and like obviously in the Stanford prison example, I'm not saying this isn't
like,
that
way over.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Zimbardo, his girlfriend, comes to visit. And see the experiment that comes to help. By the way, they're having like parole meetings and shit, and like why you should leave the prison. And like one of the guys that was on the parole board had been to prison, like real prison. So who's going really hard on him? These guys are breaking down for 4 days. He's done years and years in tough prison, and he's like, you fucking pussies, stuff like that. So it's like, it was like still, even like the people in charge are just being quite terrible, sticking to the role, really feeling it. But yeah, his girlfriend comes along, sees what's going on, seeing that the prisoners are being made to walk between rooms with bags on their heads, shackled up.
It sounds like Guantanamo Bay more than a fucking prison.
She's just like, what the fuck are you doing to these people? This is actually insane. Like, you're running a real prison and treating them like fucking shit in like the basement of the university. And in the end, this is what causes him to, you know, pull the plug. Doesn't fuck up his relationship, because I think he does get married to her. But yeah, he eventually...
Wait, which the girlfriend?
His girlfriend of the superintendent. The guy that set up Zimbardo, yeah.
The PhD done.
And yeah, like, he pulls the plug, realizes what he's done. It's fucking mental.
So do you think he got way too caught up in it to the point where it took someone else outside of it to clock it?
I don't know if he was enjoying the superintendent role, but he definitely was too caught up in it. It had muddied up his whole experiment, or at least in most people's opinion, because his bias was a part of it. Like, you are running the experiment and part of it, and you have your bias, you know what results you want, and you're skewing everything to kind of get the results
to be more tapped.
Like, I was right. My studies were correct. This is what I believed, and look what's happened. No one's been able to. They've tried to recreate those experiments. They never got the same results. But I guess that's part of the whole thing. Like, you can't get the same results from this experiment because it was skewed.
Yeah.
The guards were told to act this way, apparently, and stuff like that. There wasn't much of a debriefing. The guards were pulled in, and I think there was an AMA on Reddit with one of the guards, and he said that they were actually offering a $30 bonus because they did such a good job. I think he called them out on it and everything, saying that's bullshit. The prisoners went through so much, we shouldn't be getting it. But yeah,
wow.
it's like pretty
that's
crazy.
an insane, like, that's a crazy experiment. I do remember seeing that that movie / miniseries, whatever it was,
like 2014 or something.
Yeah, I don't know if I watched it or what, but I remember hearing way more about it. But I wonder, you know what it kind of reminds me of? You know, Lord of the Flies. You know, where they get put on an island, and then there's all these like power trips, and they kill somebody, and it just gets like way out of control, and it's all about the power dynamics within a group if you're just sort of left to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you found that interesting, there is a really good pod in it by I Could Murder a Pod.
Yeah,
they go more in depth, and obviously they know more than me, so it was a lot more detailed. But yeah, I just found that it's fucking mental.
Mate,
how
that's
that was
insane.
He didn't go to prison or anything. Like the study on it now is today. It's just ethically, like these studies can get fucked up, and this one really did cross the line.
Yeah,
people getting hurt, harmed. So I think his actual study was kind of just fucked in his results.
Mate, that's mental.
Yeah.
Anyways, look, let's wrap it up there. Let us know your thoughts down below on the Stanford experiment. That is super, super interesting.